Hi, I'm Ashley Clements, narrator of the audiobook of The Secret Diary of Lizzie Bennet by Bernie Sue and Kate Rorick. The Secret Diary of Lizzie Bennet is a companion novel to the web series The Lizzie Bennet Diaries, a modern vlog-style adaptation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice that fills in some of the behind-the-scenes events that never made it onto Lizzie's videos. Some things because they were too private or because they just didn't happen on camera. I hope listening to the audiobook allows fans to feel like they're continuing to connect with Lizzie and be a part of her life, and I hope that hearing my voice narrate it, a voice that they should be familiar with as Lizzie Bennet, immerses them further in that world. Here's a sample of the audiobook for you to enjoy. Saturday, April 7th. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. My mom gave me that quote on a t-shirt. That's really where I got the idea. Well, that and the previous 4 years of undergrad and 2 years of grad school studying mass communications with a focus on new media. Now, almost in my last year of graduate school, in between trying to figure out how I am going to turn my forthcoming degree into a profession and manage to have a life while paying off my mountain of student loans, my mother gave me a t-shirt which, to her mind, will solve all of my, read her, worries. Worse yet, she tried to make me wear it. To school. Curious how my mother would make a 24-year-old who has been dressing herself for technically decades wear a certain article of clothing? Then you don't know my mother. Or her underhanded nature. I'd managed to keep the shirt buried in a drawer since Christmas, but then there was a hostile laundry takeover. That's all I'll say. Luckily, I managed to avoid this sartorial horror by keeping my gym bag in my study cubicle, letting me change from my offensive yet clean shirt into an inoffensive yet smelly oversized tee. It was really a rock-hard-place situation. The only person who saw me in the offending t-shirt with this random quote, by the way, I have no idea who said this phrase, but whoever did, I hope they were being sarcastic, was my cubicle mate and fellow grad student, Charlotte Liu. Hostile laundry takeover? She asked knowingly. Did I mention that we are also best friends? I didn't think anything of the shirt until later in the day when Charlotte and I were leading the Communications 101 discussion group. Somehow, conversation turned from cross-promotion on social media platforms and their relative efficacy to how to reach different generations via mass communications. As discussion continued, Charlotte said the following. Well, the difficulty with reaching different generations via any platform has always been within the message itself. Care to elaborate? I said, hoping she had something up her sleeve to steer the discussion back to the curriculum. Well, take that t-shirt your mom gave you, for example. I was very glad at this point that I was not wearing the shirt, as it would have invited 30 18-year-old freshmen to stare at my boobs. After paraphrasing its message for the class, she continued. Your mother, and consequently many of her generation, have an entirely different mindset about what your future should be, and therefore communication with them is hindered by more than just the platform. It's the message itself. In other words, my plan for my future happiness involves a lot of hard work and ingenuity. Mom's plan for my future happiness involves my marrying a rich guy. And apparently, every single rich guy out there is just dying to take on the job. Later, I was talking to Dr. Gardner and I mentioned the t-shirt to her and what Charlotte had said in class. Dr. Gardner laughed and thought it was a deep well of conflict. Yes, a deep well of conflict is an excellent way to describe interactions with my mother. Perhaps exploring whether disparate messages and platforms can coexist in the same way disparate people exist in the same house should be part of your end-of-term project, Dr. Gardner mused. Ah, yes. The dreaded end-of-term project for Dr. Gardner's hypermediation in new media class. It was meant to be a large multimedia project, and I'd been having trouble coming up with an idea. On top of that, Dr. Gardner was also my faculty advisor, meaning she'd been prodding me for weeks to also define what my thesis would be and what I'd spend all of next year on. One overwhelmingly large project at a time, I'd begged her. and I went home to ponder the possibilities of the shorter but sooner end-of-term project. While at home, I listened to my mother harass my long-suffering father because someone bought the big house in Netherfield, a new McMansion community with the biggest house on the hill taking the name of the whole development as its own. And that someone is supposedly male, rich, and single. And my mom has called dibs. Not for herself, of course, but for me or for my sisters, Lydia and Jane. Any one of us would do. She's not particular. Really, depending on his net worth, she'd probably be willing to do a 2-for-1 type deal. Or 3. That made my mind up. The fact that my mother had so little concept as to who her daughters were and what society we currently live in that she was ready to doll us up and trot us out like debutantes at our first ball for a stranger just because he was rich? The fact that she was so desperate to meet this stranger that she was nagging my father, on those occasions he's home from the office earlier than dark, to go pay a call on the new neighbors like he's the local welcoming committee. The fact that she has absolutely no clue what it is I do or what I'm studying, just telling people that I like to talk. Maybe she'll end up on morning television. Well, perhaps there is a way to show the world the disparate messages I've been forced to listen to for far too long, and use a new media platform to do it. So that's what I decided to do for Dr. Gardner's class. I will attempt to explain my mother and my life to the world at large via new media. After some discussions with Charlotte, I've come up with a few rules and stylistic choices that I think will work. It seems obvious, but I've decided to do a video blog. Me, talking to the camera. It's straightforward. I don't feel like I will be capable of capturing the moments of veracity necessary for a documentary, given that I have no money to pay a crew and I have to spend half my time in class anyway. I'm a big fan of the Vlogbrothers and other videos of this style, so it can't be too hard to produce, right? Of course, consistency is key. We decided to post videos to YouTube twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, without exception. Even when I have nothing to talk about, these videos will go up. Part of the project is mining the deep well and becoming a consistent content creator. But what will I talk about? I asked Charlotte as we broke down the idea. You've never been short of things to say, Char reminded me.